Okay, I'm sitting there saying, I hear Jen's voice.
She just got up to go say hi.
I didn't know she was on the Zoom. I'm saying, I know that's Jennifer. Where is she? Two days? 2 days after. So I'm thinking EPA is not out. I can't believe they have. Before it was open up.
Are you doing tech for this some slides? What's the best way for I have a laptop? I have them on my phone.
You have the slides.
I do.
Okay. Well, the slides are gonna, if you were to have slides, you'll be from that.
From that laptop. Okay.
Yeah, so I think.
So if I could pull it up from
Yeah,
something.
that would be.
She might be on Saturday.
Let me see.
We've been talking a lot.
And I'm pretty sure you could log into like a Google Drive or something.
I know. My door's open.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Hi, Jen. There's Jen.
But she can hear you now. Hey, Jennifer.
Jennifer. Jen.
I think you have to. I think you have to really like this. Use this.
Hey, Jen.
But you can turn on.
Hey, Jen.
Hello. I can hear you but not see you.
I heard your voice and I'm looking in the room around here and I'm like, that's Jen. Where's Jen?
Surprise. And I'm sorry, I can't quite place your voice. I know I should know.
I'm not telling you if you don't know.
Oh, it's Maria, for goodness sake. I just took one more sentence. How are things going?
They're going good. They're going good. We just got more good news a little while ago. Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
On what type of good news? Campaign good news? Personal good news?
Grant, good news.
Great.
One of the grants that we applied for. A grant, good
Grant
news.
good news. Good. Oh, every time I move, it makes the lighting all wonky because the sunlight's coming in the window.
I thought you were here. It was funny. I'm looking all around the room. I said, Rebecca, that's Jennifer. He said,
Hiding in the
"She's up there."
walls.
All right, I'm putting the mic down so you're not going to hear me.
All right.
Yes. Yes, it is. Why can I not get my slides? Really? Sorry, I wasn't. Hi, how are you? Of course. Good to see you. How are you? Doing fine. Trying to see if I can make my slides.
Teresa, this is
Hi,
Lisa. She's going
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I think Jay is moderating.
Yes.
Yes, I think so. I don't know. I haven't been told yet either, but I'm assuming that's what they want us to do. But, okay, this is not liking me. Let's see if we can
Get it in just a folder on my phone, then I can probably check it. Because it pulls up my phone and the folders come off the apps. Yeah. Everything has to be saved. I know because I have to change them, so. It was in an app. Give me a minute, I maybe will figure it out.
You can get it to like a Google Drive folder or something, then you can sign in.
Are you coming out? Yeah, I was saying, I don't know if I do. I can email it to
I could do it on a computer. I did set up your slides.
I know.
Yeah, I'm not
Or, I could put it on a flash drive.
I mean, I feel like it would be better if you could email you the file.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Is that-
B,
is that-
gener,
is that
okay,
necessary?
A, this is, you're gonna go to B.
See if it'll pull it up in a second. I plug it. I'm trying to avoid having to log into something because I never know what the logins are.
Yeah.
But allow. Okay. Oh, yeah, I got it. Okay. Now, do you need this? I got it on here. Do you need? No. So I'll go ahead and
Okay, then that's fine. Yeah, you can just leave it there.
leave it here. It's okay, or take it out.
You can just put it in the corner. When we're ready, I'll transition over.
1, 2, 3.
I don't know if it has to stay. Okay. All right. So I just put it on the desktop.
Thanks everyone for your patience. We'll get started in just a minute.
Yeah, maybe for the table.
Remember the mini grant? Mini grant? Yeah. You remember? Yeah. There's a woman. Chorito. That was. I wanted to introduce you. Remember how we were working with the Latinx community? This is the one who's doing the videos that she does, Trina. She's with Delaware Civil Rights Board of ACLU, Delaware. She's involved, she's a little tornado. You, the Green Amendment, that's what we're, yeah, you and John are part of that, that's what this is. Her husband wrote a book on climate change, like years.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
The guy she's talking to now, that's her husband. He's really tall, really.
Oh, yeah,
Never
yeah,
put that
yeah.
together.
I've seen him on Zoom a lot.
Yeah.
Now in person. Yeah. All right, we'll get started, everyone. Thank you for joining. This is the panel on the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, where we have been and where we're going next, and MAJC for short. My name is Jay. I'm the program director for the U.S. Environmental Justice Program at the grassroots justice organization NAMATI. We work in several countries around the world, and we convene the Grassroots Justice Network, which is a global network of grassroots practitioners who work at the intersection of law and community organizing. I have the pleasure of moderating this panel on the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, which is a coalition we've co-convened starting a couple years ago across Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. And the principle or the sort of root of this coalition is to focus on grassroots-led advocacy and to focus on grassroots people power building. Many coalitions, sometimes there are solutions that are developed without the folks who are most immediately impacted and most imminently and presently impacted by the issues that the coalition is trying to address. And our founding principle and guiding principle is to center and work with the leadership at the grassroots level. As my good friend, Tennessee Representative Justin J. Pearson said a couple of days ago, it is critical to be proximate to the issues that we're trying to solve. And that's the same principle behind the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition. So I'm going to ask our panelists to talk about the work that they're carrying out in each of the states of the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition. And I'll just very quickly introduce each of them. First, we have Anissa, you pronounce it Cartagena or Cartagena? Cartagena, Coalition Coordinator for Boost Delaware, the Delaware chapter of the Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, as well as Maria Payan of the Sussex Environmental Health Network. We have Gustavo Angeles from the Virginia, he's Environmental Justice Program Manager at the Virginia Sierra Club. Online, we have our colleague Jennifer Kunze, who's a program officer at Clean Water Action Maryland. And we have Ms. Parisa Nuruzi, the Executive Director of Empower DC. And I'd like to start with a round robin from each of the panelists. If you could talk a little bit about the environmental justice issues in your state, how you're addressing them, and how you're in particular working with community. And just going in alphabetical by first name, I could ask Anissa and Maria to talk about Delaware first.
Hi. Oh. Okay. Hi, my name is Anissa Cartagena. I am the campaign coordinator and organizer for Delaware. The chapter name is Boost Delaware, and it actually is an acronym, and it is bringing opportunities for our shared tomorrow in Delaware. I always like to start with that just to kind of show you where we start off at and where we're going to end at today. So a little bit about Boost Delaware. We are a collective of dedicated individuals and groups who are coming together, who are working to create substantial and impactful legislative changes that will take us to the next level, right? When we talk about economic injustice, a lot of the times we forget where that focus is. And for us, that focus is for the people that are constantly hurt. Part of the legislation that we're going to be talking more about today is something called the Green Amendment and HB 220, which I will definitely pass to Maria in a second to give a little overview on that. Who we are and kind of like what we do is we like to advocate for sustainability practices and principles that promote economic prosperity, also that promote economic prosperity and environmental sustainability while also promoting social equity. One way that we do that is through HB 220, which I'm going to give Maria a little bit of chance to kind of speak on. And then we're going to just talk about how all of those principles come together and what we're choosing to do for our organization and our state chapter.
So House Bill 220 is adding to our state constitution in Delaware a right, and that right is to clean air, clean water, soil, things that we need forever, things that everyone needs, whether you are, I don't care how much money you make, where you live, this is something all of us need. And what do we find? That oftentimes the problems are centered in communities, unfortunately, where their voices are stifled. Why? Because they lack either money, and I'm sorry to say that, but they don't have a whole lot of political donors out there that are rooting for them and connections. They lack not only degradation to the environment, but that also includes um, good schools, good food, good jobs. So there's so much that runs throughout when we talk about people that are underrepresented. This is really, really important to me because of the health effects. We know that environmental justice intersects with public health. And I have seen over and over again, and I'm tired of seeing communities where we have birth defects, where we have high rates of asthma, where we have folks that can't drink their water. And a lot of it, I'm sorry to say, we can fix. Okay. This is not brain surgery. You know what it takes? Political will. And when we don't have the political will, what do we have? Rights. So this is something that adds to our constitutional rights clean air and pure water for everyone. What does that mean? Well, it means that now there's some legal teeth, right? You can't bypass things that folks used to be able to bypass, and communities did not have the money to hire representation to. It holds our agencies accountable, which means they can't cut corners as easily because there is challenges. There's citizens. There's things in there that actually make people do their due diligence. And that's all we want. We don't want, the end of industry. We want good neighbors. We want people to comply with permits. Everybody wants economic development. Everybody wants, but you know what? We also want good health. So House Bill 220, this session has gone through the committee. We also have to take it through both chambers. So it's a multi-year process. We are through the first step of the process. One thing I will say is this is being done in multiple states. I come from a state, from Pennsylvania, where it actually is in our state constitution, Article 1, Section 27, and I have seen the power of it used. So this is why I have been very supportive of getting this through. And I would encourage other states to look at the same thing, but each state is differently. So make sure that you are talking to some folks that have been leading the charge to make sure that you're getting the right language for your state. And with that, I will pass it back to you.
Thank you so much, Maria. HB 220 is not just only having an environmental effect, but it will also have an economic impact as well, right? When we speak about Delaware, a lot of people do not know this, but we are actually ranked 5th for the most polluted water. We have very polluted air. A lot of people don't know this, but in a lot of the high schools there, they actually had to shut off the water, and the students are not allowed to drink the water. So it's having detrimental health impacts. And for me, I am not a Delaware native, but I have been in Delaware for the past 6 years. I graduated from a Delaware high school. The Delaware high school that I graduated from, they cannot drink the water, and the students that are in those schools are Black and brown students. They are students that a lot of the times do not graduate because they are faced with a housing crisis, which also goes back into HB 220 and the environmental impact that it's having, right? When we talk about economic injustice, we're also referring to the fact that there's systematic inequalities that happen between that. And what we're trying to do in with Boost is that we are trying to really build up our community with the members and allow them to have a seat at the table. So I'm very privileged where I can actually sit here today and speak on behalf of the state, but a lot of people do not have the ability to, speak about the issues that they're enduring right now. And the pandemic really exacerbated a lot of these issues that are currently happening. Still to this day, these Black and brown and low income communities are still facing the impact of these things. There are people in Sussex County that do not have clean water and do not have access to that. And our coalition is really building up to be able to allow them to have a voice, to allow them to sit down with their legislators and build up the coalition, the community members. We're not just only focused on economic justice, on environmental justice, we're also focused on economic legislation as well. And part of that is just to kind of make up for the disproportionate impact that are happening in these communities, as far as like when the issues in the environment are causing a healthcare crisis, which are then now creating a funding issue where people aren't having access to be able to, say, oh, to be able to get assistance for these health issues that are occurring. For example, asthma, that is very prevalent in these areas. Another thing is just a lack of resources. People don't have the money to just up and move, despite them living in areas that might have heavy pollution or, terrible air quality. It's not just as easy as just moving down the street or moving 30 minutes up the road. A lot of people don't even have cars to be able to drive away from the areas that they're living in. So they're just constantly breathing it in. It's really impacting them with job opportunities. So something in Boost that we're just really trying to do is also just educate our community. A lot of people don't even know it's an issue. A lot of people don't even know what to look for. And this chapter was created so we can spread awareness, so we can actually make positive and effective change. And that's just some things that we've been working on so far.
Thank you, Anissa. And thank you, Maria. Can I pass it to Gustavo? Talk a little bit about Virginia.
Sure, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity for being here and speak. So I'm in Virginia, and in Virginia, in 2020, we passed the Environmental Justice Act, which is a law that puts some concepts on the code in Virginia, such as what is environmental justice, what is a population of color, fence-like community, and other concepts that were important. And also, it make environmental justice that all the whole state and their departments have to seek and look for environmental justice. So with that, right now, what we're doing and trying to do is the implementation, right? It's been 3 years. The administration earlier this year in May released a reglement, a guidance document on how this should be implemented, which means is that it's putting the guidelines on how the Environmental Justice Act should be implemented. It was open for comments. It was a draft. This draft is not the final document. A lot of organizations submit comments, and that was we're waiting right now for the release of the reglement of the guidance, which eventually it will be also subject for comments. So it's been 3 years and there is no implementation yet, right? But the law is there. The way that this has to be implemented, because it's been seen by the department DEQ, which is the department in charge of giving permits, is that environmental justice is treated as a communications problem or issue. So if you communicate with the community where the factory or the pollutant is going to be there, you're fine. That's how it's seen. It's not seen as environmental justice has to be affecting if you give or not the permit, which is how the law has been written. but it's not right now. The way that the administration sees this is a communication issue, and depending of how many meetings they do, if they do outreach or not, and that's what is currently happening right now. During my work, I work with impacted communities in different issues, and I help them to make sure that they are aware and they are able to speak and provide them with the information so they can participate in the process. Because, again, as I said, right now during the process, they only are seeing as a communication issue. But thank you.
Thank you, Gustavo. Can I pass it to Jennifer? If you're able.
Sure. Yeah, I can go next. Would it be easier for me to share my own screen for the slides, or are they set up on y'all's end?
She shares her screen. If you can share your own screen, please, Jennifer.
Perfect. Disabled participant screen sharing. Is somebody able to get that going? And if not, I can talk without them. That's fine.
1 second, please. If you'd like to get started, that would work.
Yeah, I can do that. So, hey, everybody, I'm glad to be with you. My name is Jennifer Kunze, and I'm with the Maryland chapter of MAJC. I work as the Maryland Organizing Director for Clean Water Action, which is a national environmental organization with a strong office here in Maryland focused on public health and environmental justice issues. And we're one of the two co-anchors of the MAJC table here in Maryland. The other one is Centro de Apoyo Familiar, or a Center for Assistance to Families. And Valkyria was going to be with us as well, but had something come up last minute. So you just have me. But our table in Maryland has accomplished a lot in the last couple of years, and there's a lot more to come. So I'm going to walk us through that really quickly. So the first thing that when we initially came together as a regional coalition, and the groups in Maryland in particular, we set out to accomplish a couple of things. This was getting started in around 2020. And the first one that we accomplished was to bring the Justice 40 principle that the Biden administration was instituting at the federal level into practice at the state level here in Maryland. And I think folks are probably familiar. I'm sure it's been talked about at length, but that's the idea that we should be prioritizing funds getting to the communities that have been left out of funding opportunities and meeting infrastructure needs in the past. And so there are a lot of different ways that needs to happen throughout all of government. And we're working on lots to do with that. But in particular, last year in the state budget, we were able to get language in the budget secured and passed through the legislature that moves Maryland into the direction of implementing Justice 40 at the state level in a whole host of different programs to do with energy efficiency, climate resiliency, making sure, first evaluating where we're at in terms of how much funding is going to, by defined in state law, overburdened and underserved communities, and then what policy steps can we take to get that to at minimum 40%. 40% is definitely the floor, not the ceiling that we're shooting for. And so that was a really exciting accomplishment. And alongside that, I'll also mention Maryland needed to even define how you choose what communities are going to be prioritized for environmental justice investments. So we worked with SIEGE and with Dr. Wilson to get SIEGE's definitions that they had developed for overburdened and underserved communities into state law in a number of ways, including in this. So that's a really important groundwork for us to be able to move forward with. And then the second accomplishment I want to share is the Transportation Equity Act. So this was moving forward on a big environmental injustice that had impacted Baltimore and the entire state over the past decade or so under the previous administration. Many folks are likely familiar with Governor Hogan having canceled the Red Line back in 2015. That was going to be our second metro line here in Baltimore. We only have one. And it was going to provide a really vital east-west connection and had been worked on by community groups to secure this investment for a very long time. But in the first year of his administration, shortly after the uprising here and after having campaigned against the Red Line, Governor Hogan cut the state funding, which blocked the entire project. And there's a lot going on to get that project back online right now. It's very important that it come back and that it come back as metro, not as buses. That's the whole thing. But we accomplished sort of the flip side of dealing with this problem was how can we make sure that something like this inequity that cut public transportation funding in Baltimore City and redirected it to highway funding elsewhere, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? And so the Transportation Equity Act does that. It sets up equity as a primary goal of the Maryland Transportation Plan and sets a lot of planning mechanisms and budgetary mechanisms into place to make sure that projects and changes are being evaluated along the lines of equity. And very importantly, if a decision is found to be inequitable, then it cannot move forward. So that bill actually passed last year, and Governor Hogan in his final year in office vetoed it, really bookending on either end of his administration, canceling the Red Line and vetoing the Transportation Equity Act. But it passed again this year and Governor Moore signed it. So that was a really exciting thing. So those have been our two accomplishments so far. Then the one that we have yet to accomplish is the Reclaim Renewable Energy Act, which is a fulfillment of a very long time environmental injustice in Maryland, which is that through the state's program for subsidizing and transitioning toward renewable energy, several polluting industries that are bad for the environment and particularly bad for local public health have gotten themselves included in that renewable energy definition. Trash incineration in particular is a really big environmental justice problem here in Baltimore. We have the trash incinerator that pollutes more per unit of energy than Maryland's coal plants by a lot. Trash incineration is the most polluting way to produce energy, and it emits a lot of carcinogenic pollution to cause cancer and other respiratory and cardiovascular diseases as well. But in 2011, in order to prop up some new incinerator proposals that had happened in the state, Maryland slipped that in to the top tier of renewable energy under this program. And so Maryland's incinerators soak up millions of dollars that should be going to support wind and solar development. So that it's been a long-standing demand of environmental justice groups here in Baltimore, as well as the groups in Montgomery County that are fighting their incinerator, and groups in Frederick County that fought off an incinerator about a decade, getting towards a decade ago, to fix this problem, right this injustice, stop greenwashing trash incineration, and redirect those extra profit subsidies that they're getting through this program to real renewable energy. And we've come together, particularly across state lines, to deal with other problems in the definition of renewable that Maryland has as well. There are two other industries that are called renewable that are just as much of a problem as trash incineration. Over on the shore, in both the eastern shore of Maryland and in Delaware, we are seeing a lot of proposals for building biogas facilities, so-called, to produce waste, to turn waste into methane, natural gas that then would go into pipelines, which is definitely something we need to move away from. We can't afford to greenwash natural gas into pipelines by just making a little bit of extra methane with agricultural wastes and then calling it renewable. And we definitely can't afford all of the sunk costs and the attraction of more waste that investing money in building huge scale biogas facilities would create on the Eastern Shore. And then similarly, we're seeing proposals and talk about bringing woody biomass into the state, burning wood waste products, very polluting, just as polluting as coal. And we really can't afford to see Maryland go down this road. So we've been working together to try to fight all three of these polluters, get them out of any definition of renewable clean energy that Maryland might have, and really write the course on this really big problem where industries have been successful at saying that these facilities are good for the climate when they're not even, but even if so, we see enormous terrible impacts for local air quality and local environmental injustices based on the state supporting those programs. So fixing that is the big, not yet accomplished priority that the Maryland table of the coalition set out to do. And we hope that you'll be with us fighting for that this coming year. And just to wrap it up in my last minute, there's been, that was a lot about the nuts and bolts and what we've been working on legislatively, but we've been doing a lot of organizing as well. In particular, and I wish Walkiria was here to talk about this more, but Centro de Apoyo Familiar has been working on lots of programs to reach youth and reach pastors in particular into eco-promotores programs that are informing folks about environmental justice issues, getting conversations started about what environmental justice issues folks are seeing in communities and in our neighborhoods, and then turning that into action. So if you're going to be here again on Saturday, you should definitely check out the panel that features CAF's Youth Eco-Promotores. They had a really cool program this summer that actually culminated in publishing a book about litter and flooding, stormwater resilience, as you might say, and the environment. And so really encourage folks to attend that program and learn more about that. And that's turned into some really exciting and interesting local work as well. The coalition worked to secure funding from the Environmental Protection Agency to Baltimore City to build our first large-scale compost facility here in the city. I'm very excited. That announcement just came down yesterday that EPA had awarded $4 million for Baltimore City to build a compost facility over here in East Baltimore on Bowleys Lane. And that is going to be a big step forward on fighting the incinerator and building healthier ways to deal with our solid waste. So that we're extremely excited about. And then something we're working on right now is actually in Prince George's County, where most of y'all are sitting at the moment. We're working on sort of writing course on a bill that the county council passed earlier this summer dealing with plastic bags. And the bill that they passed bans plastic bags, which is very exciting. Plastic bags cause a lot of litter, and both the production and the disposal of them is very bad for the environment. We need to move away from plastic bags. The bill also put a 10-cent fee on paper bags across the board with no exceptions. And that's where we see an environmental justice problem, because particularly folks who are using SNAP and WIC to pay for their groceries can't use SNAP and WIC funds to pay for paper bag fees. It's federal rules, can't change that, but we can change how fees are assessed at the local level. And so something that a lot of places around the country have done, really simple, common sense solution, is just to say that if you're paying for your groceries with SNAP and WIC, you don't need to pay for your paper bag fee. And so this isn't one of the priorities that the coalition set out to do, but the relationships that we've built have allowed several of us to really jump into action on this. And CAF and us are working together with Maryland Hunger Solutions and the Prince George's Food Equity Council on some rapid response additional legislation to fix this inequity and make sure that SNAP and WIC recipients will be able to get paper bags when they really need them. So if you're in Prince George's County and want to talk about that, let me know. And I'll close it out there, and happy to turn the mic back and hear from the last remaining panelists.
Thank you, Jennifer. And last but certainly not least, Parisa Nourouzi from Empower DC to talk about DC. And let me try and get these slides up.
Hey everybody, nice to be here with you. I'm Parisa Nourouzi with Empower DC. I have one of my colleagues here, Sabrina Rose, who is our organizer. Yes, please do applause. She's our organizer in the environmental, in the Ivy City community. Does this work? It doesn't seem like it. Okay. You can hear me, so I don't know if it was for the people in online lands. Yes. Okay. And also we have our newest staff person who just joined the team, Stacy Lucas, who is serving as the DC Environmental Justice Coalition manager. So I welcome them to add comments. So what I was going to do is sort of give you a little bit of an overview of what's going on with the DC Environmental Justice Coalition, which I think is the newest in the of the groups in the regional coalition. And first, I want to thank Namati, who really made this happen and has been, a great partner, and Vivek and Jay. We've just been we've loved working with you guys, and also all of our regional partners. It's just been a great opportunity to be in community with such fabulous people. So we're really grateful for that. Empower DC is the anchor organization of the coalition. We are a citywide grassroots organization founded 20 years ago. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary. And we thought it was really important to have a base building, power building organization as the hub, the anchor of the coalition, so that we could make sure that building power, right, building a base for EJ is a key component of the work, and that we don't get too, we certainly need the advocacy, we need the policy, we need the science, but we don't want to ever do that in the absence of real impacted communities and power building with impacted communities. So we've created this structure with a steering committee, and I've listed here our steering committee members. Dr. Phoenix, who's a very well-known expert in the field of asthma in particular, Rhonda Hamilton, a very accomplished community leader representing the Buzzard Point community, and Tanae Lewis, also a very active volunteer with NAACP, the DC chapter. You can go to the next one. And this is just a snapshot of some of the members of the coalition. It's still very much in development and growing. And now that we have an actual coalition manager, I'm foreseeing big things on the horizon. But some of the groups you may or may not recognize here. A mixture of larger, staffed groups, as well as more grassroots, community-based and volunteer-led groups. And this is not a total, we have a very long list of priorities that our members put together, but in a snapshot, I think these are the things that have been moving the most in our first couple of years. So a lot of work has been done by the members around lead and asthma, particularly the issue of full replacement of all the lead service lines affecting homes in DC, and thankfully, we do have a program now funded by the city to make that free and make sure that happens by 2030, I think it is. And I think the groups are working to make sure that's implemented and done as quickly as possible. A lot of work around addressing the conditions in homes that are, contributing to illness, including asthma. We're dealing with a lot of the industrial land issues. The formatting came out weird, huh? And a lot of our work at Empower DC is, really centers on these land use questions, right? So the more we get into the work that we've done throughout the city, we realize that we have to build our ability to inject impacted voices and build power in all of those decision-making spaces that we're usually excluded from. So, spaces like zoning and planning, where, often impacted communities are not at the table, not only not at the table, maybe have been explicitly excluded in the process, and there's a lot of inequity in the whole processes of these things. So we're really trying to intervene there. We're doing a lot of work around air quality, both monitoring as well as getting local and federal agencies more involved, and particularly trying to shut down some very hazardous facilities, and as well addressing renewable energy and transportation impacts. And this is, sort of we have not yet won any policy changes in our short tenure, but a couple of things that we're working towards, which I think some of the other states have similar things that we can learn from. We're really looking at a interagency council on environmental justice for DC. Any DC residents here? Okay. All right. So you all know, it's a unique place, right? And we don't have the state government. It's a city government. We function both as a city and a state. So the DC Council and the mayor's office really are the two power brokers in the city, right? And we have a big problem of nobody taking responsibility for environmental justice. You go to one, and of course, environmental justice is very intersectional, right? So it touches many agencies, but the agencies are so siloed that they just say, you go to one agency, say, oh, that's not us, go to them. Well, that's not us, go to them. And you could do that all day long. So what we're trying to create is a space where the agencies are required to work together, and to work with impacted communities, to have to set EJ goals, to have an EJ action plan, and to monitor, measure, and report on progress towards those goals. And so we understand that this is something that there is an EJ interagency council on the federal level. I believe there's at least a few places in the country that has them. So this is a policy in development we're working on. And you can go to the next one. And the other thing that we're really looking at is the cumulative impact. Again, other cities and states have done this, but we don't have it in DC. And so we want to, possibly even include the mapping component into the land use planning process, right? The comprehensive plan, which has the land use maps, identify the impacted communities, and have very strict requirements around meaningful community engagement, racial and health impact assessment, and really start not just preventing new places, because that, yes, we need to do that, but getting rid of the stuff that currently exists, because we have a real problem, and I'll show you in a second, of the overconcentration of pollution sources in certain neighborhoods, some of which have been grandfathered in, some of which are not, should not be allowed per current laws, but are still affecting people. And so this is just a map that shows the red line going through the middle is the New York Avenue corridor. And this is an area where a lot of the industrial land is concentrated. So you see all the purple area is industrially zoned land. And this is neighborhoods like Brentwood and Ivy City along New York Avenue. You can go to the next one. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is now you're looking at it from the whole city perspective, right? So that clump of purple that's circled on the left there is industrial land in the context of the District of Columbia as a whole. So you're seeing that more than 50% of the industrial land in DC is actually clumped in this area, right? And then it corresponds with the heat island map next to it. So you're seeing how that has a direct result of, exacerbating the heat effect in these communities, which, both have the industrial land as well as a lack of tree cover. You can go to the next one. And so these are some of the communities that are impacted by this. The Ivy City community, where Sabrina lives and works as an organizer, is really the, a community that's at the heart of Empower DC. We've worked there our entire history. And it's a neighborhood which is very historic. It's celebrating 150 years. A Black community founded 150 years ago. And so you imagine, and I had another map, I guess I didn't get it on here, that shows at that time it was really surrounded by fields and farms, right? So this is pre-zoning. And you can see how, racism imbued in the land use structures then disproportionately burdened this Black community, this residential Black community, with all kinds of industrial stuff around it. And so in these pictures, you see, like, this is the neighborhood tree cover map. You see that it has, you know, almost no tree cover in the heart of the neighborhood, which DC is known as a treed city, right? It has this classification, but there's communities like Ivy City where the heat is 10 to 20 degrees hotter than other communities that have been left out of that. And you see the aerial view, how there's just so many surface parking lots. And at the heart there in the very center is the Crummell School. It's a historic school that was the heart of the neighborhood, and it was closed in the 70s. We fought the city from putting a bus terminal there. So they paved the whole 2-acre site because they thought they were going to win. We ended up winning. And it's now really contributing to the heat island effect. But just recently, we won a 20-year campaign to turn that into a community center and a park. So soon we'll be digging up that concrete. Go to the next slide. And my picture didn't show up here for some reason, but another thing that is plaguing the Ivy City community is a chemical facility that is you know, operating in plain sight. It's one of these things that's been grandfathered in, and I apologize, my photo's not showing up, but it's just a nondescript, you know, sort of squat building, but it's right next to people's homes. And this is it's a facility run by a company called National Engineering Products. They're manufacturing chemical adhesives primarily for the Navy using carcinogenic, you know, chemicals. Not only would it not be allowed per current zoning to put this literally connected to a residential home, the city was completely negligent in, you know, doing no oversight, no compliance of this. And so when we started to really ramp up our complaints about it, they literally said, we didn't know this was there. Yet they said it's been there since the 1930s. So you have this as a plain example of, again, a white-owned company that was allowed to operate in a Black residential neighborhood without oversight, without enforcement. We're working very hard to try to shut this down, and we're running up against the issue of there being no real law that prevents it because it was grandfathered in. So we're you know, strategizing and working along many lines, and EPA is now involved doing air toxics testing in the neighborhood. And across New York Avenue is Brentwood. And just to show you, so the blue is residential community, and these residents are living directly across from what I consider to be one of the biggest sacrifice zones in DC. And so, you know, in this line here of red industrial things, there's, you know, trash transfer facility, there's an asphalt plant, and there's a number of other things, but it's at the point where this community, they cannot open their windows, they cannot sit outside, noxious odor, you know, of course, particulate matter. And you can scroll to the next one. And we got involved because the city's planning to put yet another thing there, a bus terminal. And so we ended up suing because they didn't even follow the environmental laws. And it's been this whole long drawn out thing. So in terms of next steps for our coalition, we're really looking to build the infrastructure of the coalition, right? Really focus on the membership, how we develop a policy platform, how we carry out an action plan, facilitating that through committees or working groups, and, you know, developing the things that help us tell the story of that, like a website, et cetera. So we're still at the very start, and really excited again to have Stacy joining us. And thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Teresa. We're about to go into Q&A and welcome questions from everybody. But first, I wanted to pause and see if anyone in the audience has been active in any of these state chapters, state coalitions, and would like to share anything. Oh, yes, and please, we'll pass the mic.
I am Charito Colbache Mateiko from Delaware, and under the leadership of Anissa Cartagena, we have been pushing the Green New Deal in Delaware. And we are so proud to have Kerry Evenly Harris that came from the grassroots, representing the real people. Her father is um, a civil rights fighter. His mother, an amazing woman who, at the very end, was marching with us in Washington. So she is a product of history and is a leadership. Now she can make law. So we are so proud of that, and witnessing all this make us very proud. And of course, my dear Maria Payan, she is connecting the dots of all the injustice, environmental justice, and she knows all the nitty gritty. I can bring people, but she knows the laws. And we need people like that because, I can't do two things. So that's what we need to see. What is our strength? I can go and knock in the doors. She comes with me too. But I am the one speaking Spanish. She is the one smiling and catching up with all the details. That's the kind of teamwork that we need to do. And I am just very privileged to have all these women that you see here. And then, yes, you have mentioned, I'm glad that I'm here in this workshop because we are dealing with 5 permits that were allowed last week by DENREC to bring a regional, repeat, don't go out of these doors without remember what I say, a regional project of a biogas methane gas plant. And guess what? No wonder, a neighborhood of Haitians, African Americans, and Latinos. We, with Maria knocking the door, they cannot tell us that they did due diligence because we were there knocking in the doors and what? What are you talking about? They didn't know what we were talking about. They never heard the biogas methane gas plant being proposed. And they're supposed to be by then, right, the ones, the applicants to go and knock in the doors. No, we were the ones that they didn't know it. So that's what they want to get away. And guess what, my friends, realize this. Once they know, my friends are so afraid to protest because they are afraid to lose their children by deportation. These are the communities they go to because even I know they will be afraid. I know they said, Charito, what is going to happen to us if we complain? So that's where I have champions as Maria Payan, I have Anissa Cartagena and Carrie Evelyn Harris, because they are the voice of these people. Without them, we won't have any public warriors that, I don't like that word, but yeah, champions. I will say champions better. It's a more peaceful way because that's what they do. So, but because of the diligence of Maria Payan, there is a complaint that was put before the approval of DENREC, and this was because of the violation of the Civil Rights Title VI. Haitians, Latinos were not notified, as we proved, and the EAPA has said, you have approved, we're going to investigate you because of this civil rights violation, and that's where we are. And let's see what happened with that. I hope that will change things.
I'm going to add just one thing to that. That was coalition building. So, sorry. I have a big mouth, so I usually don't think that. That was coalition building, but involved in standing with the communities was not only my organization, Sussex Health and Environmental Network. Also, we had the Poor People's Campaign. We had NAACP signed on to the complaint. We had ACLU signed on to the complaint. My former employer signed on to the complaint. So this was all in coalition with the communities under the umbrella of Sussex Health and Environmental Network, because most of them were scared to sign their actual, which is really sad in our society. So the game isn't over yet. So don't go home sad because we're still at it.
Would anyone else who's been active in any of these, DC, Maryland, Virginia, like to speak?
Hello, my name is Fraser Walton, and I'm with the Kingman Park Civic Association. And I just wanted to say that DC Empower is one of two, maybe only one that I know of in the city that has been a citywide organization that has fought very hard on lead, water issues, overflow, sewage, and water. And so Parisa and her group has done a great job. And Sabrina has called me numerous times, and rightfully so. But we're a community organization, so we're always fighting all kind of encroachments in our community, and we feel terrible because we can't give enough time to empower DC, but they take the lead. Yeah, and you do a great job. Yeah, great job.
Well, it's great to see Brother Fraser Walton in person. We always online, but I'll be in another. I don't want to say too much because I'll be using that for my presentation. But basically, it takes sustainability. It takes to stay in a game for a long period of time, which Parisa has done. Parisa has been in my community for over 20 years fighting for Cromel. Now we're dealing with a lot of EJ issues, and it's more than what we have mentioned because of environmental racism and because the way the city is set up, they have used Ivy City as a dumping ground, also Brentwood. And you have to be part of an organization that's going to stay the boots on the ground, keep the boots on the ground, and stay, just like Shakobi said earlier, it don't end at 5 o'clock. This is 24/7. It's 24/7. I know. But I just want to put it out there that if you're going to be part of an organization, make sure that organization is doing what they need to be doing for the people and not for the businesses and not for politicians.
Hello, everyone. I've been doing a lot of community work for a very long time, and I've watched Parisa and started from a one-woman show to where she is today. So I'm really, really honored to be a part of this organization. This is more of a sort of a question, but somewhat of a statement. When we are getting a lot of pushback, whether it's from government agencies and or who is holding power, my thing I always ask, what's the bigger question? What is the why, right? Why are we having such a fight for something just as human rights, civil rights, environmental rights? Why are we fighting to breathe? Why are we fighting to drink, water that should not be polluted? What is the bigger question with this? Like, what's really happening behind doors that apparently none of us really know? And we are always trying to fight to find out what that big why is. So if you're having issues with someone trying to, we were just hearing about the things that was happening in the school systems with the school systems having to shut down, right? Just because of mildew, right? Mildew is a treatable, easy thing to treat if you catch it, right? Now you have over 17 schools that students can't go back to. Well, what are they planning on doing with that land if 17 schools are now being closed? So when we are on our mission to all this pushback that we're getting, always ask the question of why. What is the bigger picture that we're not seeing, but the overseers that's in charge really have planned out, trust me, 15, 20, even 30 years ago, what they were going to do in our communities a long time ago. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony David. I am a recent graduate of Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. I currently sit on the Department of Environmental Protections, Environmental Justice Board for the state of Pennsylvania. And I'm currently coming back to DC to continue my environmental work. My environmental work started in Pennsylvania with illegal dumping tours in the city of Harrisburg. I've testified on environmental justice issues for the whole state of Pennsylvania. I'm coming back to DC to handle the same issues. So when looking at, so I remember when I saw the Ivy City post and looking at, that facility, right? I was literally in the office working at NOAA during my internship. I'm working on, the integration of physical and social data, some of the things that you guys mentioned about tree canopy coverage and all of that, that's my undergraduate research for the city of Harrisburg. So, I have facts and figures. I've seen it all about the temperatures. I have a white community and a black community sitting right next to each other. And for the surface heat, it's a 17-degree difference. So, this stuff is very real. So when thinking about, the Ivy City situation, again, last summer I had an internship with the Navy. So I know, the facts and figures of, the guidelines of what they're supposed to be doing when, following the EPA regulation, when they're having, dumpings and testing site. I think this situation is kind of unique because I think this is a contracting agency that's supporting and helping the Navy. Right. So it's kind of appalling to me knowing that this has been happening since the 1930s, again, aligning with the redlining districts and redlining zonings. History is amazing how things are happening, and I guess my question is, you guys talked about of these DC like agencies not knowing anything about this agency that's like emitting stuff into our atmosphere. So I guess my question to you all is just like, okay, what are our next steps into suing some of these agencies dealing with this? Because how can y'all not know what's been going on? They're like, that's law. Like, y'all supposed to know what's going on. EPA is supposed to know what's going on. They had to have that, reports too. And I guess because in DC we don't have like our environmental justice like council or anything like that, because with my work in Pennsylvania, they have to report to us whenever there's permitting, whenever there's anything like that, when there's numbers and facts and figures of what's supposed to be going on with anybody. So the fact that this has been going on for many generations, that's yeah, like I don't understand like how people can't even get away with tax fraud and stuff like this is happening. I can't even walk around in a store without somebody staring me down, but yet an organization like this can admit so much. So I guess my question to you all is just like, can you talk a little bit more about like, our DC government's response to this, and why haven't we have anything from our mayor or city council about what has been going on with this certain agency?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking the question. And nice to meet you. I hope to stay in touch with you.
Yes, I will be applying soon, so you'll see an application from me.
Oh, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. Okay, so we went through all the channels, right? Like all the different agencies that, follow the different regulations, did the complaints, all of that stuff. And at the end of the day, the Department of Environment did come in, do some testing. They found high levels of different toxins, but they didn't shut it down. Then EPA came in, and so now they're in the midst of a 6-month testing of the community, the air toxics in the community, but they haven't shut it down. So meanwhile, this facility is still operating without even permits. Like, it's known that they don't have the permits, and the city government said to us, well, it's a small facility, it's a family-owned company. We're helping them figure out what permits they need. They actually said the district government, us, the taxpayers, are paying for the analysis so that they can figure out what. So meanwhile, again, the approach has been completely backwards. And I, there's a film you need to check out. Google Ivy City Rising or People Rising Ivy City, and it's or go to Empower DC's YouTube page. Namati helped us create the short film about it. And in the film, you'll see the woman who lives next door to this plant, who purchased her home through a DC government funded affordable home ownership program. The house was just built about 15 years ago. And again, nobody told her, right? So that this is a chemical facility next to your house, and there's pipes, the emissions are going next to her kid's window, and they are sick from this, right? And again, now everybody knows this and nobody shut it down. So what I've been told recently is the Attorney General's office, they've had internal meetings, they've brought the different divisions together. They are confounded. There's no law evidently. There's no a law that would be an easy, maybe the mayor could do some kind of executive order. I don't know. They're talking about, maybe it's an eminent domain situation. The only thing that's been brought to our attention as an option is a citizen suit under the Clean Air Act. And so we're looking at that. Of course, we don't want them to just get permits. We want them gone, right? But we do think that shutting them down, at least temporarily, hurting their pocketbooks, would be an important strategy. And again, this is a company. It's a family-owned company. The woman who owns it lives in Chevy Chase, Maryland. She's in her 80s. She inherited it from her father, and we're hoping that we can. So far, they have been unwilling, of course, to meet with us, but we are trying to put more pressure on the company itself, because I think we have a real problem in this country. I mean, it's not just in DC, where we improved the laws, but then we grandfathered in the things that were already harming the neighborhood. So the communities most impacted never got the benefit of the new law that says, you can't have this next to people's houses. So we have to really figure out how to get at the heart of that issue, the grandfathering issue. But I think it's going to end up direct action, because everybody knows about it right now. And the agencies are all just kind of test here, test there. So yeah, I don't know, any other suggestions for what we can do besides, direct action, let me know. But we are looking at legal options for sure.
Any other questions?
Hi, thanks y'all for everything. This is so fascinating. My name is Nike Adiye. I work for the Equity Fund. We fund groups in Maryland and Virginia and Pennsylvania on climate and clean energy, mostly on state level policy. So kind of building on what y'all were just talking about, I've heard a lot of the concrete kind of hopeful actions that you've talked about, be like Title VI campaigns or the Clean Air Act, mostly federal. So I'm just curious, what you think are the main what are the barriers you're facing with your elected officials, like the city council, Maryland and Delaware? Just what's the barrier you think to getting, your delegates to understand what you're talking about, to care? What do you think you're facing there?
No, I will answer. I will use this mic.
Okay. Money and power. Money and power. Okay. So whenever you talk about the industry that is most prevalent on the Delmarva Peninsula is the poultry industry, right? So you will see that they are job providers. Everywhere you look, if anything you say, these are the job providers. These are the job providers. These are the job providers. Along with that, they have lobby groups. Okay. So you have your
they made the law.
You have relationships. Let me put it delicately. I can show you. This was before Dr. Wilson was, and he lets me tell the story. Before he was tenured, Dr. Wilson actually had come down to do a health impact assessment. One of the students was as a grad project, because public health won't touch anything dealing with poultry in Delaware, because they say, Maria, I have a family to feed. So you have to get Maryland to come out to actually get science. Okay. So when Jacoby came out, literally through something, Maryland has something called a PIA, Public Information Act. When we did a request, we found within these documents, the Delmarva, it used to be called DPI, Delmarva Poultry Industry. Now it's called DCA, for more of a homeowners association feeling, Delmarva Chicken Association. They had written to, at the time, the dean of the school here, to the Maryland Ag, where they have done research here over the years. I can show it to you. I've shown it and given it to tons of reporters. It will not get printed because they're also the biggest advertisers. But literally asking why Dr. Wilson was in Delaware doing a, in quotes, public health study. In quotes, yes, ma'am. In quotes, public health study against the economics of the industry in Delaware. And he's from Maryland. This is before Dr. Wilson was tenured. That's why the first time I met Dr. Wilson on the phone, I never get, Maria, I have a family to feed. I can't say that publicly. You know what? Dr. Wilson's there. And that's why, like, I have teamed up with him since the beginning, because he will never betray himself, right, for any type of gain. Like, even when he brought, like the Mahdi and Magic, I was like, normally, first thing I always do is Google somebody. If Jacoby brings me, I don't Google them. You know why? Because I know they're of like mind, true to themselves, true to spirit. And that's a compliment, a real big compliment, and it's hard to find. And I'm sorry to say that that is the case within our society, but it absolutely is. It's money and power. Anyone who wants to do something good has to be scared that industry is going to put money up against them to put them out of office. So, it's up to us, and, we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention and we have to vote, right? And that's the whole part. We need to pay attention. We really do, because that's the only power we have, right? I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in, but that's like my experience.
Sure. Well, Virginia, the governors, not this one, but all of them, they will say Virginia is number one for business. And when a state is really proud of being the top 3 or top 5 for business every year, that has some consequences for the people that are living there. The other reason is racism. I mean, there is a lot of history here. What Maria is saying about the law is that who makes the law? The lobby people talk with the legislators and they pass bills. When you start putting impacted community members to talk with the legislators, that's when you start looking or seeing a little bit of resistance. But you have to talk about who financed those campaigns after, right? The same way that at the state level, at the city or county level, you have the same issues. I can tell you examples such as Dominion Power, which is a big company, provides electricity to half of the state in Virginia. They put a lot of money in politics. The amount of lobbies that they hire at the legislature are over 50. So when you start looking and seeing how you're gonna go against a company like that, it's not easy. It's not easy. And you have the law has been written, and it's been written by them in the way that they want it. So you need to change that. That's hard. The enforcement is the same because, okay, most of these, even the federal law says like the company, the polluter, is gonna self-report their data on how much they are polluting or not. Right? If you have a company and you're polluting and you know that you went up a specific day, you're reporting that information. But what you're gonna do, you're gonna say like, oh, I already fixed it. I'm sorry, that was an exception. And the problem is fixed. So what do you want with that?
And also there's usually a huge burden on the community to file complaints, right? And of course, most of the time we don't even know how to do it. But then you do it, you don't hear anything, but it's always a burden on the community. No, it's not just that there's somebody coming around to enforce and inspect. Is there idling? Is there odor? No, you have to report it. And you have to report it again and again and again.
Yeah. And then half the times you have to, like, it's pretty well known, like in Sussex County, if you challenge anything, I've had many communities do it. You can't go to the first court. You have to go up to the second before you even get a chance. The first one costs you at least, you can count on 15 grand. And when we are talking about the kind of communities, right, that we work in, these are not people who have that kind of money at their disposal. And it is very, very hard. Even to try to get representation, a lot of attorneys won't do it. You know why? They're scared they're not going to work again because you work on one side or the other, So, yeah, it seems like it should just be so easy to, okay, this is what we have to do. But because of the money and they keep their people where the trains roll. You know, there's only a handful of people in positions where the money runs through, where this, and as long as they control those positions, they have the whole chessboard. You know, it's sad.
Oh.
Sorry.
We're pretty much at time, but anybody have any last burning questions?
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment. I have worked with Gustavo in Virginia. We're talking about champions and people that the amount of effort that it takes to keep this going. And I just wanted to say how much Gustavo had helped AMMD Pine Grove Project. And every public meeting, every time something was going on, Gustavo was there helping us explain to us what's really going on. You know, we talk about people power and politics. And he was doing that for other community groups as well. So I wanted to acknowledge him. And again, I live in Bowie, Maryland, but I'm from Virginia. And Gustavo mentioned racism. I can feel the difference when I go to Virginia. And so you really do need to know what's happening, and you have to have genuine people that are going to say the difference. So you got to know the political environment, but we have to have that balance. And so there's a lot of genuine people in here, and I'm encouraged. And I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, each and every one of you. Fight the power. Let's keep this going.
Do any of the panelists have any last words to share? And I'd like to check in with Jennifer on Zoom to start. If Jennifer.
Oh, I was muted. Yes, I'm still here. Hello.
Just wanted to see if you had any last thought you'd like to share, Jennifer. Just asking all of the panelists.
Yeah, I think to the question about sort of what's the obstacle here? Like, why aren't we winning? Just for a little microcosm of that, I think I'll turn back to the local issue I mentioned in Prince George's County, where at the hearing on putting a fee on all paper bags without any exemption for people using SNAP and WIC, the lobbyist for the Maryland Retailers Association said that stores wouldn't be able to afford providing that exemption, which we know isn't true because they use it in other places and it's worked out just fine. It's a policy that works. But at the same hearing, there were folks who had been on SNAP and WIC saying that this was a major problem and they wouldn't be able to afford it. And Councilwoman Oriata of Prince George's County, who sponsored the bill, said, why is it so easy for us as the council to hear it when the retailers, the businesses, the industry says that they can't afford something that's good for the community, and we don't hear it or we don't listen to it in the same way when someone in the community who's impacted says that they can't afford something or that it's impacting them. And overcoming that really frustrating bias and inequity in how people's voices are heard is really what's bringing us together. So I'm really happy to be working with everybody here and the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anyone else have any last words to share? Any of the panelists?
One thing that we need to consider is that when the either city or county administration is not friendly and its state is not friendly, you have the other option, which is the EPA. There is a Title VI, and that you don't have to be a lawyer or you don't require a lawyer to file if the project that is being done have some funding from the federal government. That's the only consideration. But each case is different, and there are different ways to approach it. You just have to analyze what is the best option and what are your options, and know really if what is going to happen there is going to be approved by the state or the city. I have seen permits approved in 45 days by a city or by a county for a mega landfill. One county meeting and the permit is approved. and after you move to the state, so the media is another option, right? The more noise that you make, the businesses are going to stay slow it down or step back because they don't want the bad rep, bad publicity. So there are different ways to approach it, but it's not easy. It's hard and it takes time.
Keep organizing.
Thank you again to everyone. I want to say on behalf of Namati, it's really a pleasure and an honor to be working with all of you and to be supporting your work. I'm going to take the privilege of piggybacking off of what Gustavo said. On Saturday, there's a workshop on legal tools for environmental justice and talking about things like Title VI and how to bring law and community organizing together. And we'll be talking about a case study in Central Virginia, Brown Grove as well. So if folks are around Saturday, please come by. It's at 3 p.m. Thank you again, everyone, for coming, and see you at the next sessions.
And don't forget the presentation on Saturday from the youth and CAF's programming as well. That'll be a really exciting one.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
That was a good session.
Energy.
Yeah, a
Love
lot
the
of
energy.
energy.
Yeah.
Is that yours? Don't forget that.
In which supply is now more dangerous. So you have to be more careful. It's not the war that changes. You go to the judge and say, if it's predicated on the state one, where's that claim? It's fine. Now we have this one. You have to apply best available science and medical science.